there somewhere. We are live. I'm fired up. Ryan's fired up as always. I don't know how much sleep he got. I think he went to bed at 4:30, but we're still going to give you guys massive value. So welcome. This is Peter Voogd, founder of the prestigious Game Changers Academy. And thanks for tuning into our monthly Millionaire video series, where we really interview and dive in with the world's most elite and successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, and real game changers, people that I personally have massive respect for, and those making a huge difference, not just in their industries, but in the world. And today we have a close friend, someone I consider family, and really one of the few entrepreneurs that I've really had a chance to be mentored by and can actually learn from, because as most of you guys know, there's so much BS and fluff out there. Yeah. This is someone that has walked the walk. And I can tell you right now, I've never met someone that really understands entrepreneurship and investing, sales, buying, selling, philanthropy like Ryan, man. So best-selling author, investor, philanthropist, father, ex-gang member. Thanks for taking the time, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, Peter, I have a huge amount of respect and admiration for you, what you've already achieved. I guess just for your audience to know, I ask you as many questions, I think, as you ask me. So I would consider you a mentor to me, and it's a privilege to be able to mentor you on some of the subjects I know a thing or two about.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I want to start with a quick story. I know you guys like stories.
Yeah.
So a couple days ago. You don't know what story it's going to be, Ryan.
I'm a little worried, Peter. Okay, go ahead. Start with the story. A couple days ago.
So we're sitting in his office. Somehow we talk about investing and talk about some of his buyouts that he's done and really what to look for in a business. Then we start talking about experiences and maximizing memorable experiences, how that's really what life's about. And somehow a private jet or Vegas got brought up, and I'm like,
who did that, by the way? I mean, did we just like spin one of those balls? It's like one of those 8 balls. It's like, what should we do next? And it's like private jet to Vegas.
I don't remember how it came up, but it came up, and we were all hungry. So we're like, do you want to have dinner in Vegas? And I'm like, really, Vegas right now? And you're like, I can make that happen. And then you say the wrong thing to Ryan. I said, I don't know if you could make that happen. So instantly makes one call to his pilot. I think the pilot's in the hot tub with his family. He's like, I'll be at the airport in an hour. So literally in an hour and a half, we pack, we board a jet to go to Vegas for dinner. Had an amazing experience. Came back the next day at like 12 or 1 after lunch. But Ryan, I'll tell you, you are Mr. Make it happen. There's no one I've been around that can make it happen like you. So Vegas was amazing, man. That was a great experience.
One, by the way, it's a great experience for me too. And for everybody to know, what Peter didn't realize is I was just trying to get him and his wonderful wife, Kayla, trapped on a plane so I could learn from them for 24 hours so I could sit Peter down and extract as much knowledge as I could out of him. So Peter, not only, I mean, it was a joy to be able to give you that experience, but I also received a great experience as well, man. You guys are family. I appreciate you too. I mean, it was so much fun, and I can't wait to do more of that with you.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. So thanks again. Yeah. So for everyone on the call, everyone watching knows who you are. They've studied you. They really admire your work and your art. But for the people that really don't know your past or where you came from, can you kind of give them a brief synopsis of who you are and where you came from and how you came to today? Yeah.
Can your viewers see the crystal AK-47 behind me? I'm gonna give you guys a little. Tell me if this works. I'll see if I can move around a little bit to show you the office. Can you guys see? Okay.
Yeah, it looks good. We can see.
Yeah. So right now you're in my little private game room / stash pad. The reason why I love AK-47s is because that was one of the products that I used to sell when I was in a gang. I grew up in gang culture. When I was 13 years old, I lost my father and my family to drugs and crime. I'm the youngest of 7, ironically. Peter, I think I didn't tell you this. On Saturday, did I tell you I found out I have another new brother that I didn't know I had that's older?
No.
Yeah. This, by the way, I'm a big fan of 23andMe, this genetic, you take you swab in your mouth. It's founded by a ex-Google founder. And it tells you your genetics. And then all of a sudden I got popped up on Saturday that I have an older brother I didn't know about. So that said, I'm the youngest of 7, and it feels weird for me to tell you that. As a result of my sister's, my one sister, Heidi, got involved in a Latin gang. Her best friend and my first crush when I was a little kid got murdered in a drive-by shooting. And then I was forced into the gang when I was 13 years old because, in essence, we were drive-bys and all kinds of bad stuff was happening. So I got caught up in a gang. The thing that I did in the gang, though, to I guess pay my dues was I stole computers. And I learned how to computer program. I learned how to code when I was about, I'd say 12 or 13 or so. And it just so happened that that skill became very valuable by the time I was 19, when I got my first job in the computer world, because that was right when Netscape launched, and that was right when the internet started creating, multi-billionaires. That's where Elon Musk got his start, Tony Hsieh. And so I happened to be there at the right time, and I happen to have a lot of relationships, and I've built some value as a result of the fact that I was at the right time, at the right place, with the right skills. And I believe we all have right now on this hangout here, we're all blessed to be at the right time, at the right place, with the right skills. We just had to take advantage of the opportunity, and that's basically what I did.
Huge. And it's crazy, the story. And Naked, by the way, what I've really thought about, Ryan, I don't want to repeat things. We had an amazing interview we already did. So if you want to learn more about certain things about his past that really sparked him, go watch the interview. But right now we're going to dive in strictly to your questions.
One other thing, Peter, one other thing is, I produced a documentary. There was an award-winning documentary called Nothing to Lose, Everything to Gain. It's free on YouTube. Hundreds of thousands of people have watched it. And it gives you a breakdown of, kind of behind the scenes of how I managed, finding out, how I managed my mother falling down a flight of stairs, the loss of my stepfather and mentor suddenly, my mom being in a coma, creating a New York Times bestselling book, creating billion-dollar brands, blah, blah, blah. And you got, that. So the documentary's out there if you want to do some research there. Also, my books give you plenty of research. You could read them. They're on Audible. They're everywhere around the world. So I share that with you because I want to talk really at the highest level, as you and I discussed, Peter. And so there might be a lot of background stuff that people could go find out later. But for now, let's keep it as high level as possible. And I'm here to share.
Perfect. Yeah. And right now, guys, it's strictly about your questions as well. And as you guys know, we have some very heavy hitters in the academy. So I'm excited to where exactly you're getting the max value. So I want to start with this question because there's a lot of investing questions, Ryan, and what process you go through, because even talking to you in that room a couple of days ago, some of what you went through as far as your long-term vision of how you're doing today, what's going to connect in 6 months, what's connect in 5 years, how all your companies mesh together, which is crazy. So this question's from Paula. Throughout your career or even now, what process did you go through to decide to go all in on a business venture? Specifically when looking back, when you were getting started too, how has your vetting changed, and what do you tell your young self differently as far as looking at businesses and what to go all in on, what to pass on?
Yeah. So one thing I'm going to give you, I've interviewed people like Tony Robbins and a lot of others, and I have a lot of mentors that I'm just blessed to have, and I've studied from some of the great ones, like guys like Dan Gilbert. I get to call a personal mentor, the owner of the Cavaliers and owner of Quicken Loans. A variety of other people out there, John Wooden on the basketball side, Coach Dale Brown, you name it. So I'm constantly learning and evolving and trying to get better at investing, because every time you have a failure, especially when you write a big check, you have to do what I call it a post-mortem, which is in essence just basically, asking yourself, why didn't it work? What did I do wrong? Taking as much responsibility and accountability, and then trying to figure out how not to make the same mistake again. And generally, I could show people my whiteboard, but between my dyslexia and my OCD, you guys probably wouldn't understand it. But I do have a method to my madness. One free gift I'm going to tell you guys to go to, and this is something I discovered recently, is there's an investor named Ray Dalio. Ray is the most successful hedge fund owner of all time. His hedge fund is called Bridgewater, and I've been studying his culture in depth. He's the all-time winningest hedge fund trader. He's got, I think, 190 billion or something like that under management, about 1,500 employees, and he's considered one of the very best. And he's also spiritual, principally driven. And so I think that his work on principles and studying him to understand investing. Now, outside of investing, I'm not a registered qualified investment advisor. I've lost hundreds of millions of dollars making the wrong bets. So, I've won more than I've lost, but I've taken more shots and missed. I've just had a few game-winning three-pointers and, a few wins. So now when it comes to me going all in personally, meaning like if when I was working at Logix and I was a software engineer and I used to run a pretty big group, by the time I was 20, for those of you that don't know my backstory, I was probably making about 150. I was probably making 200,000 a year by the time I was 20 years old, and that was in the 90s. So keep in mind that's like probably 300,000 or 400,000 today. I never actually got a college degree, so I didn't have a high school diploma. I went and got my high school diploma while I was starting my business. Ended up getting my GED, and then went to community college and went to a 4-year, and then started a company during that. the way I went all in on my own personal startup was pretty simple. I saved up enough cash to where I knew I had a cushion. Now, the good news is about the younger you are, the less you have to lose, right? So I had nothing to lose. So I was making 100 and plus thousand a year, 200,000 a year. I figured if I could continue doing that, I just compound at that rate forever. That didn't happen to work that way. Like I went from making $6 an hour to 200 grand a year in 1 year's time. So I thought if I could just duplicate that every single year, you know, if I was able to do that, I'd be a trillionaire now. I'm clearly not. So I made the decision to go all in when I had enough cushion to be able to take the risk. Now everybody's risk, appetite is different. I write about that in Nothing to Lose a fair amount, because you don't want to take too much risk. If you're not wired to take risk, if you're more security driven, or you have obligations and responsibilities like I do now with my son. You know, I have an 8-year-old boy who has autism. I can't risk it all, and sacrifice his education. So my process now is different. My betting now is different. My risk appetite is different because I have more to lose now than I used to. So it's an individual thing. Last, I'll tell you though, in your soul and in your intuition, that you should test yourself and ask yourself, if I go all in on this, will I regret it? Meaning, or will I regret not? It's like I got an opportunity that just came to me. I haven't announced it yet. And I knew that if I didn't go all in and getting this opportunity and securing this deal, that I would regret it for the rest of my life. And it could be probably the single best investment I've ever made. And I've made a few investments that are now worth billions of dollars. So, when I have that shot, it's like play that Eminem song. You only get one shot, right? 8 Mile, and then you just got to take that shot. And you'll know when, your body's resisting it. You have anxiety, you're nervous. You're constantly thinking about it. You wake up at night. You know what I mean? Like you can't stop talking about it. People get annoyed with you about how obsessed you are about your business. So when you start seeing those indicators, that means you're in love with it. And if you're in love with it, you're likely to be successful, provided you apply what Peter teaches, what I teach, and a lot of other people teach about entrepreneurship out there.
So it's changed over the years, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that makes sense based on your risk.
It changes every day. Yeah, I mean, the markets change every day. So my net worth goes up and down every day, and my long-term vision and short-term vision changes every day based on things like politics. I don't care if you like Trump or not. I'm agnostic right now. I love Democrats. I love Republicans, and I've had the pleasure of working with both Trump and President Obama and being in the White House and so forth. And so I have no idea what's going to happen, right? I mean, nobody has any control of that. And so everything changes every single day based on the markets, based on, what's going on in your personal reality and your personal, environment. And then, but on a long-term horizon, it doesn't change that dramatically. Like I know that, and this is something I got to tell everybody, and this is that question I asked Tony Robbins, I shared with you. It's like, what would I tell the younger version of me, or the younger me, now that I'm an old man, I'm about to be 40. What I would say is, pay attention to your timeline. It's something that I wrote about in Rock Bottom to Rockstar, that I try to create so much goodwill and so much value that I'm able to extract that value 10, 20, 30 years later. So I'm profiting today off the work I did when I was 19 years old, right? So over 20 years, it's all going to work out. Over 40 years, it's all going to work out. Over 10 years, it's all going to work out. But over 1 year or 2 years or 3 years, you might go through some tough times. Believe me, I've had 3-year down cycles that sucked. And that just happened. When the recession hit, I had no control over the fact that all my customers started canceling and my business almost went, bankrupt. But as a result of that tough time, I built some skills and some strengths and came up with some ideas that, made billions of dollars in value.
Huge. So you're planting a lot of seeds, and I've seen that, and you're an avid learner as well. So we have some people, Ryan, that have literally left 200, 300, 400K a year in corporate to really build their own business. So I want to share something from Angelo, who's doing well. He says, I'm 7 months into my business full time. He says he has Superman syndrome, where he feels like he has to do all of it on his own. He can't afford to pay for certain consistent help. Couple questions. How do you find the right people that are willing to prove themselves first? And he feels like this whole business in his nature, he's not fully sure about. And he doesn't know like what the next steps are. What would you do if that was kind of your situation?
Well, one, 7 months in, if you 7 months in full time, congratulations. Two, I have insecurities, and I worry about a number of the businesses I've invested lots of money in that are doing well. I worry about them not working. all the time. So it is natural for you to have a certain amount of insecurity and fear, and that's good for you, because there is somebody out there, if you have a good business idea, that is going to try to take you out of business. There's a competitor trying to, reverse engineer your process or automate you out of a job or change your industry or disrupt your industry that you're in. Believe me, everybody's trying to steal your customers, especially the smart guys at Facebook and Google and Snapchat and so forth, right? Their job is to get you to distract yourself reading fake news and doing anything but working on your business, right? And so it's natural to have that fear because you have people seeking to disrupt you, and you're probably seeking to disrupt others if you got a good idea. So 1, 7 months, congratulations. 2, one of my mentors taught me something, and it was odd to me because I used to have an hourly wage mindset. So I used to think to myself, well, I make I make $6 an hour, or I make $10 an hour or 20. And one of my mentors told me, Ryan, you as an owner should have the least pay in the company because leaders eat last. So I would always hire people, and it was weird because I would be like starving and I'd be making like $2,000 a month and, and drinking Folgers coffee as opposed to Starbucks. And I'd be paying a person $200,000 a year. And like, I'm making 30, right? And I own the company. But if you have people that are smarter than you, that are making more money than you, eventually your equity will be worth more, right? So you're paying cash and you're getting equity in exchange. So I've always aimed high. I've always tried to get the very best of the best talent. And when I didn't have cash, I gave them a piece of ownership. Hey, Peter, I'm getting a little feedback. Is everything, can you hear me okay? Everything's coming through cool?
Just cut out, but we still heard you.
Cool, got it. So, some of the best hires I've ever had in my life were when I persuaded a grown adult to come, leave a big time executive position at a major company to come work for this, at that time, this young kid. I remember they'd sit in my office. One guy was the CEO of a publicly traded company, and he would tell me how to be a better CEO and tell me about my blind spots. And I still value and covet that I had people better than me around me, and those people have gone on to lead some big companies. So aim high, get people better than you. If you can't afford to pay them cash, give them equity. Last is, when you read Nothing to Lose, like I hired a guy I needed a part-time person to start my business. I hired him off of Craigslist. He was a UCLA writer. He came in working part-time at like $15 an hour. When I founded ViSalus, he was there alongside of me. I couldn't afford to pay him what his market wage was worth. Like at that time, he would have got $75,000 a year leaving college at UCLA. I could only afford to pay him like 30. And so I gave him the difference in equity, and he made off that 1 year sacrifice like $6 million. So he sacrificed like 50 grand a year to come work in my little startup, and the equity that I gave him turned out to be worth $6 million, that 50 grand. So I have a long list of people that I've made tens of millions of dollars that basically I couldn't afford to pay when I hired them. So I paid them in equity and I gave them a piece of the upside.
That's a whole different way to look at business too, because most people just think in terms of wage and dollars. Is there a process you go through, or was it more based on that current timing of your business or your gut about what percentage to pay? Because I know people ask me that too.
Yeah.
That's tough to figure out.
It is. Well, some people, I'm proud that I made a lot of money. And then there's like 1 or 2 employees that quit like 3 months in, and like they made $10 million or whatever. One guy, I wrote a check for $5 million, and I called him up, and I signed these checks, right? And he didn't deserve it. He didn't earn it. He was at the right place at the right time. God bless him. You know about the story about that Uber driver, the first Uber driver who replied to the tweet, and he's worth like $2 billion because they gave him equity. And he was an Uber driver, right? Or the guy who spray painted in the Facebook head, the home office, right?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, right? Like he graffitied this Facebook home office. He didn't charge the $2 grand he normally would have, and he made $250 million for a $2,000, graffiti job at the Facebook headquarters. Those stories out there exist, and and everybody who's ever become a significant success multi-billionaire has made a lot of people wealthy along the way. Now there are some people that are more greedy, that are more controlling, that don't want to give up a single share in their company. I understand that mindset too. I've never had that mindset because I don't want to do all the work. I hate doing certain things, and I suck at doing a lot of things. And so I won't attract the right people to come help me if I don't give them a piece of the upside. And I don't want to have a bunch of people that I'm constantly having to babysit because I'm, paying them cheap wages. My stepdad used to do that. It drive me crazy. Like, he could afford to hire the best accountants. He hired the cheapest, and then they'd embezzle from them, or they'd quit, or they make bad financial decisions that cost them hundreds of thousands. And I would always be like, why don't you just hire somebody and pay them, $500,000 a year and not have to worry about this stuff? And he never agreed with me on that subject. And so I took the exact opposite approach of him. I share the wealth, and I try to get the best people, and I try to pay the highest wages in the marketplace and give the most opportunity and upside. But as a startup, that's not easy to do. So you have to run a process.
Huge. That's huge. So you get into business, and you have the right team. Now, a lot of people are asking when they're going from just maybe 6 to 7 figures, or when they want to build the brand awareness and credibility, what are the skills, like the survivor skills, that you offer startups in the health and wellness industry or in general? We have a lot of people that are wanting to expand their company awareness and attract the right people to their business. Can you think of those 2 or 3 must-have skills that entrepreneurs need in this new economy?
Yeah. Let me think here. Well, one, recruiting is everything. So, and a lot of, hold on real quick. I'm a technologist by training and my background. And, I've invested in a lot of different spaces. I have an investment, if you go to HashtagOne.com, that's my venture capital fund. And you'll see some of the investments I made through that fund. I made a lot of other investments that aren't on the list of that fund that, they're either private or some are stealth, or, some I've exited. Like, I invested in the founding of Elite Daily. Gerard Adams read my book, started Elite Daily. One of the first articles he wrote put me in it. And I then reached out to him and invested. So, the skills that you have to have right now to be a successful entrepreneur, number one, you have to be coachable, right? Because, the world is changing so fast. If you think you know it all, you're crazy. You can't be a know-it-all. You have to be coachable. You have to have gratitude, right? You have to dream big, and have huge dreams, daydream about you being a multi-billionaire and flying on a private jet, or getting the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year award, or speaking, like I just did recently at the Boys and Girls Club, or, selling out an arena, all that stuff. I just dreamed about it all day long, constantly, obsessed about it. Woke up in the middle of the night, so you have to be obsessed about it these days. You have to love your business and what you want to do and be passionate about it, because if you don't, you're not going to be successful at it, because there's just a lot of disruptors out there looking to disrupt industries, specifically those with entrepreneurs that aren't passionate about the service or the products that they provide. So you got to be passionate. You got to be a savage too these days. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of times people are soft, and when I deal with young entrepreneurs, sometimes, it's like shooting a rabbit with a cannon. If you're not tough, man, you won't survive. Like, Mark Zuckerberg is tough. Evan at Snapchat is tough. Tony Hsieh, these guys are tough. Bill Gates is a monster. He looks all nice and all cute and fluffy. When he was young, this guy was incredibly competitive. He would get red in the face and freak out and scream at people. And I know that because I know some of his co-founders. I know people that, are founders of other companies and so forth. So you got to figure out, how to win and how to be competitive and who you're up against. And then most important, your competitiveness should be channeled not toward, your competition. Your competitiveness should be channeled toward you. And the very fact that you're going to create so much value or do such a good job that there will be no competition, right? As opposed to, and I've made this mistake, targeting the competition or focusing on them. And then you're not turning it internal. You're not focusing on your product or service and you getting better. You're focused on the competition, which is, something I've learned the hard way not to do. So I think I've given a lot of attributes about the subject. Not all entrepreneurs have the same exact attributes, but it's not about resources. It's about resourcefulness. Tony Robbins taught me that. You have to surround yourself with great people. Be a student. You gotta listen to guys like Peter and follow their lead. If he's built a process and he's created a system, buy it. I've bought more seminars, more books. I've gone to seminars where I paid $5,000, showed up for a day, realized it was like a 2-day seminar, realized that I could only receive, I only had the capacity to take one idea away that day. And I left and didn't go back to the second day, bought another ticket for $5,000 just for the second day a year later, because I couldn't, because I wanted to be a student. I wanted to learn, but I couldn't absorb it all at once. So I guess the last thing is you got to learn, and then you got to apply, and then you got to modify, test, and tweak, and then learn, and then apply, and so forth.
Huge. So thick skin is what I'm hearing in all of that is thick skin, right? Just making sure that nothing can affect your state of mind. And when you're around other people that are savages that have thick skin, it makes it easier. I know entrepreneurs that they have it in them, Ryan, but everyone they're around is soft.
Yeah.
They're giving up on things. So it's hard for them to be a savage.
Yeah. Yesterday I was talking to, I was on a podcast, and it was about like men, you know, and one of the things that us men do, and I know there's both women and men on this call, but one of the things us men don't do very well is ask for help, right? Because you want to be tough. I don't want to, Peter, like when I call you up sometimes, it's like, you know, I'll call you up like, yo, I need your help. And, you know, it was weird for you when I first started calling, because, you know, you probably wouldn't think that I would call up and be like, you know, I want to know exactly how you did this and what you did here, right? So, you know, you got to be willing to ask for help, and you got to surround yourself with people that are going to just be so excited to give it to you. But then you don't want to ask for help if you could find out, you know, that you need otherwise, right? So a lot of the reason why I call Peter directly and ask for help is because he hasn't, you know, I haven't figured out how to buy his course yet, and I haven't been able to go all through it. I haven't been able to be a part of the academy. So if you have an opportunity to learn from Peter, don't call him up and ask for help. If you can learn it by reading his blogs, watching his interviews, going to YouTube, reading his books, you know, being a part of, you know, his network, you know, but if you are a part of his network and you do good, and Peter identifies how good you do in the value add and, you know, and the actions that you take, then you're going to get his help. So I don't know, that was a long rant about my process.
And I want people to understand, and I actually, it was a somewhat of a breakthrough mindset for me when we were doing masterminding at your place, just me and you in that same room. Is that stuff still on the whiport, by the way, that we talked about?
Yeah, let me show you.
You guys won't understand. Yeah, this is funny.
Let's see. I want to see if there's anything on here that all right. Listen, one, I trust your team, right? You guys, please don't share this. I'm an open book, but I'm giving you guys some top secret confidential stuff that a lot of my competition I don't want to see, but I know everyone on the phone here isn't my competition. I hope some of you, you know, myself and Peter get to work with. Before I show that to you, I have to give you a disclaimer. I have dyslexia. I'm not the best whiteboard.
You won't be able to read it.
You won't be able to read it. But if you can decipher this code, you know, so be it. So right here, can you guys see that whiteboard?
Oh, that's awesome.
Can you see it at all, Peter?
Yeah, I can see it.
All right, hold on. Let me ask you a quick question. Can you see it now? Let me look at there. Yeah, you see it right there, right? All right, hold on. I'm gonna see. Can you hear me? I'm gonna take these off and see if you can hear me real quick. Hear me okay?
Yeah, it's a little echoey.
All right, little echoey. Here, I'll tell you what. If you look right here, you'll see these are all the goodwill projects that I've done. You know, my books, my documentaries, my charity work, my speaking, my past ventures, the results of the products that I've you know, been a part of and created. You know, meaning like the billions of dollars worth of value that I've created out there that I've yet to unlock. You know, this is my Entrepreneur in Residence program. I partner with founders. I'm partnering with Peter. These are from my Entrepreneur in Residence program. You know, we generate team members, we generate customers, we generate co-investors, and we look for people to invest in, like the next Mark Zuckerberg at our #1 business. Through #1, we've invested in Heal, ViSalus, Riveting, Frag Mob, a few others, many others that you'll see. And all of these things then create what's like a perpetual engine to create more goodwill, to create more entrepreneurs in residence, to create more investments, to create more value, to create more investors, to create more team members, to create more goodwill. And as you can see here, the projects that we do on the goodwill side, this is about 20% of our time, right? You know, maybe a little more, sometimes maybe a little less. These things we don't do for direct intention of profit, although we know. Like I give all my book proceeds to charity because I know that the amount of goodwill that I create by doing that will have an impact 10, 20, 30, and you know, and so years from now. So let me put my headphones back on so you guys can hear me. Any questions about that, Peter?
Yeah, so I want people to understand because I want people to understand because people don't realize that was probably an hour of me and you going back and forth and you really sharing some stuff that changed my mindset. So,
well, and by the way, and I gotta say, this is a work in progress, and you helped author this just as much as I did. So, you know, this will evolve every single day. But this was Peter asked me to articulate, and that's not something I'm great at. He's smart. He's like, all right, what value are you gonna provide? What are your tactics? Like Peter took me to school a couple times on that whiteboard. Truthfully, I got videos of him whiteboarding that I watch. And so it forced me to articulate something that was in my head. And that's why you have people around you like Peter that are both your teachers and your students and vice versa. So anyways, that's as much my doing as it is yours. And that was a brainstorm we did together, brother.
But I want to share this so they get value. Like, first, everything you do, like there was like 5 or 6 steps. Everything is value focused. Yeah. 2, everything he's doing, he's not wanting immediate value or immediate results. So most entrepreneurs these days, they want to work hard for 3 nights, Ryan, and then get a freaking payoff the same week.
Yeah, good luck.
They're not focused on 10 years. Yeah. Third thing is he's talking about not only investing in the next Mark Zuckerberg, but all the value and all the money that comes in. Yeah. He wants to get at the end. You literally told me, you said, so when all these billions come in, then we're going to give it away. I'm like, wait, so you're doing all this to give it away? That's what you're talking about.
Yeah. So like the irony of it is I remember starting, I was a poor kid and I got into college because of affirmative action, so I was able to leverage the fact that I had minority status because I was a foster kid and I was able to literally leverage that to get into a 4-year university. And I remember signing up for my first bank account on the college campus. It was a Wells Fargo bank account, 1996. And that little bank account would go overdraft and I'd panic and freak out. We've all been there, right? Where, we're in trouble and we don't know how we're going to make payroll or get paid or whatever. And that little bank account I started on that college campus, I think about $1,900,000,000 has gone through it, if not more, since that little day on the college campus where I signed up for my first Wells Fargo checking account. So I share that with you because, eventually once you create enough value out there, billions of dollars will come your way if you have the right idea, the right approach, the right timing and so forth, and some luck, which I've been very lucky. Finding the next Mark Zuckerberg isn't going to be easy. I hope I do. I've invested in a few unicorns though, one of which big news will announce pretty soon here. It's a company called Heal. I was a founding or seed investor in it. Our Series A round, we announced, I think we did 55 million in our Series A. We're going to announce very soon a multi-billion-dollar valuation, and the company is a couple of years old. So, I passed on a few investments. I passed on a founding investment opportunity in Google. I passed because I didn't have the money to, which, I can't be mad at. I wasn't in position. I passed in a company called WeWork, which I did have the money to invest in. My good friend started the company, and my friend came to me and said, Ryan, take a $250,000 position in WeWork. I think I had owned about 5% of WeWork, or something in that neighborhood. WeWork's now worth $20 billion. So I left about $700 million on the table by passing on that one. And that really pisses me off. And so I swore that I'd never pass on the next WeWork. So, I've got a number of unicorns that I've been able to be a part of, that I've been able to create, that I've been able to identify. I hope to find a lot more and help a lot of people, turn their businesses into even more success than the ones that I've been able to create.
So we're going to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah, go for it.
We have some people that have some pretty rough past, which is why they have the hunger they have. But here's the question for you that I'm curious about. He says, his name's Phil, by the way. And if you could see the question.
What's up, Phil?
I sent you some of them.
I can't see them. Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay, without going into detail, he said he has a similar background. And these days, though he can socialize, he finds it difficult to allow people too close to him, and he finds it hard to trust people. Yeah. He believes that it impacts sometimes his business relationships, and he battles short-term memory loss, and it's difficult to be productive. He's wondering if you've faced any of these challenges and if you have any mechanisms that you can really get across.
All right. So for one, so memory is an interesting thing. I have a disability called I have a mental defect. I got plenty of them that I share openly. I was like one of the first people to be diagnosed with ADHD. So I think I started a trend. Like I was in 2nd grade, so that was like 1989 or so, or 82 or 4 or something. I don't know. Whatever. Long time ago, right? But I have all kinds of mental deficits. One of which is called it's a defective route memory, ROOTE, I believe. And as you can see, I'm dyslexic, so my eyes will have to try to figure it out. Which means I can't remember the names, or even like I'll know a person's name and phonetically I'll lose it. So like I'll be talking to Kayla, and all of a sudden I'll be like, Kyla. And she'll be like, dude, Ryan, we know each other. Like, how would you call me Kyla? And it's because this short-term little memory thing stops me. So I try to share with people these little challenges I have so they don't think I'm disrespectful or I don't care, because it's the truth. Now, in context, though, I have a great memory. So in the case of Kayla, like I might mispronounce her name, or even my own family members are like, Ryan, did you just call me, because I'll phonetically transpose B's and P's and things like that. So even my own family will be like, Ryan, you know my name, don't you? And I'm like, yeah, Dad, right? Sorry, I missed it. So you have to realize that those little disadvantages of yours, those little mental deficits can be your strengths. So many great entrepreneurs have dyslexia, have ADHD, have, OCD. I mean, if you look up like some of the greatest artists of all time, everybody from Freud to Beethoven, they say Mozart, had autism. They say Steve Jobs had autism. I think I might have, a slight degree of that. My son has it. Peter, when you and I get together, man, it's like, we're just, like, oh my God, there's a bird there. And all of a sudden Peter's running after the bird. I'm in mid-sentence. The moment he comes back with the bird, I'm chasing after a dog, right? So, that's right. I mean, dude, it's pretty hard for you and I to be in a room and everybody else to follow along. But we understand each other because we know, we both have the same kind of mental deficits. I don't get mad at you if you lose your train of thought. You don't get mad at me. We know each other. So, you got to utilize those things to your advantage. On the trust side of it, though, I'll tell you this. One of my mentors, Coach John Wooden of UCLA fame, he's the all-time winningest coach in men's basketball history. He won 10 championships. I think it was 7 of which were in a row. He had the all-time winningest games. He was a guy who scouted and discovered Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Walton, and a variety of others. I mean, he's a legend, considered one of the all-time winningest coaches of all time. And I had the privilege to be mentored by him. And he told me something important because I asked him the same questions when I got to sit down with him. And, and he said to me, he said, Ryan, because, and this is the guy that the president would call him up. And he's mentored some of the greatest athletes and people that get taken advantage of, people that get stolen from, right? Celebrity athletes that their managers steal money from, their agents steal money from, right? He's had to mentor guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar through all kinds of trust issues with the public because of their status. And he said to me, his number one advice was, he says, it's better to trust and then be hurt than to not trust at all. And so when I feel like I have a trust issue and I'm not sure, I check my instincts. I ask myself, I'll ask people that have maybe see my blind spots. I'll say, hey, like Peter, I'll ask my chief of staff, Hasina, who you met, am I seeing the same thing about Peter that you are? And she'll be like, yeah, absolutely. She's got the same read. Or she might say, Ryan, maybe you should ask Peter, when we first met, maybe you should ask Peter this or ask him that. So I try to get people to help me see my trust blind spots because I need to trust people, right? But you can't trust everybody and you have to be careful. So surround yourself with people that are going to help you, like a good wife like you have, right? Peter, like I'm sure there's times where Kayla's like, be careful about that guy, Peter. Or there's times where Kayla's like, you might not see what this guy's real intention is. So you need people around you that can help you kind of figure out your trust meter, but you have to trust people. Last item, if you have a rough upbringing like I do, you got to get to a place. I didn't tell the world that I didn't walk into rooms when I was just starting out, showing my gang tattoos and talking about how, my sister's best friend was murdered in a drive-by, or how I did time in juvenile hall, or I was facing an armed robbery charge and 4 years in prison. I had my record expunged so I could walk in those rooms and not have to deal with that. But I knew that someday somebody was going to figure it out and learn about it, because my old homies and people would threaten me. People would say, like, oh, we're going to tell the world that you were, a terrible person or a gang member, blah, blah, blah. And so I decided I was going to build so much success that I would then go back and tell that story later. And that's what I share with people that have maybe gone through addiction or a tough period of time or depression, or, they've made some bad decisions, gone to jail, gotten involved with the wrong people, whatever. You got to get some space. You got to create a new version of you. And then after you do that, you want to go back and share with the world, and liberate yourself and tell everybody what you've been through and how you've been through it. You'll find that more people will identify with you. It's like, I never thought sharing with the world that I was in a gang would put me in the room with the President of the United States of America. I was scared to death when I shared my background and I first published it and put it in the bookstore, that I would, people would judge me and I wouldn't be able to, ring the bell on the NYSE or whatever. I learned the other opposite though. When you tell the people who you really are, right, they'll trust you 100 times more. And I use an analogy in Rock Bottom to Rockstar. It's like, you're a rose right now. You're working, you're an entrepreneur, you're doing your best. God bless you, you're a rose. Every one of us that's a rose out there, we got a ton of thorns. If you show your thorns, people won't look for the others. If you don't show your thorns, people are going to be like, that rose is too perfect. And they'll start looking for your thorns. So share your thorns, but share them wisely.
And one of the reasons I really was looking forward to this call is because people see you all over on the news. You were just in Forbes, all your books. Yeah. They see, obviously, you have money, you're investing, you've made billions. So they're like, man, I can't be like him. He's perfect. But then when you really talk to you, you have disabilities, you have things that you're not always perfect, but you use your strengths to your advantage, and you find people that are better than you to get around to help your weakness.
Yeah. Oh, right? Yeah. I suck at a lot of things that I'll never be good at. Like, communication. I do strength finders, which I highly recommend. I don't get paid for strength finders, so I want to make sure everybody knows here. I'm not, pitching a product. I haven't invested in that. But I took that strength finders test, and it was like, 35 minutes. It's $80, and it breaks down your strengths, and it stack ranks them 1 through 36, right? Now, there's an idea of strength finders. There's no weaknesses. It's just your number one strength, in my case, is competition. And like one of my bottom strengths is communication. So I'm never going to be a guy on my phone all day long replying to people. I put my phone down, and Peter knows this, for sometimes 2 days, and I won't look at it. Because the more successful you are, when I look at my phone right now, one day I looked at my phone, I was hanging out with friends, and all of a sudden it says, Ryan Blair sued for $240 million. That ruined the vacation that I was on, right? Like, I wish I would have waited till I got done with vacation with my friends until I saw that news. So next thing you know, I'm flying home to deal with the lawsuit I didn't think I was going to have. So I'm not good at communication. I don't value it, but it's necessary, right? Like, you got to communicate. So I have to get people, and I have to develop systems to help me get better at that. Now, I'm not good at that right now. It's a deficit of mine because I recently sold a big chunk of ViSalus. So I used to have this big executive team, and I used to have an assistant who had an assistant, and 1,000 plus employees and thousands of salespeople, and so I didn't have to do anything but just basically wake up, and people would handle me and tell me where to go, how to get there, what to eat, when to eat, my food would be served. So I lost a lot of these skills that I now have to relearn. So that said, know your strengths, and then know that every strength can become a weakness if it's carried to an extreme. Like my number one is competition, and if all of a sudden I'm competing against the wrong idea, the wrong people, it's bad. And so my friends know I'm very competitive. If they want me to communicate, or my colleagues, they ask me competitive questions to get me to communicate. Like they'll be like, Ryan, how would Steve Jobs reply to that person? Or, hey, Ryan, what would Steve Jobs do in this situation? Or what would another icon of mine do in this situation? Or Elon Musk do? And then I'll find myself saying, he'd probably send this email, and I'll stop and send it right then and there. So know your strengths. And surround yourself with great people, but then also hold yourself to a standard, even if you know who the person is. Like I might be a standard to you, Peter might be, Elon Musk, and then ask yourself, what would Peter do in this situation? How would Peter communicate? How would Peter go about doing this? How would Ryan go about doing this? How would Gerard Adams? How would a variety of the people that you've brought to this network of yours, man? Like you brought some A players that everyone on this call should be like, how would this person act in this scenario? And I do that all the time. So like, when I get hit with news, when the bigger you are, the more lawyers try to steal your money, and it's a bad legal system we're in, but so be it. I asked to be a public figure, and I asked to be, have some notoriety. And so there's a whole lot of people out there that can profit off of tearing down a person's business, especially when you're a publicly traded company like I was. And it's easier to tear down a business than it is to build one up. If you've seen the TV show Billions, there's a lot of Bobby Axelrods out there. Peter, we talked about this. When you're a publicly traded company like I was, there were literally Bobby Axelrods trying to destroy my company, private investigators digging through my trash cans, interviewing my friends, girls I dated, following every move, and then literally ambushing me in situations that I had no idea. Like I'd be at a bar, having some drinks. All of a sudden, someone would sit next to me, maybe a pretty girl. I'd be having drinks, talking to her, and all of a sudden I'd realize she knows more about me than she should. And I'll be like, how did you know that we did $10 million in sales yesterday? And then she'll be like, oh, well, I work for a fund. And next thing you know, I realize this person is literally spying on me to try to get information to determine how to, So man, I've been through it all on the subject. It's a tough world out there. You got to be a savage, that's for sure. Yeah, so
you answered it. So here's it. And I love these answers. I actually kind of like the questions they're unrelated and random because it gets you like off different topics. And I love because you're very off the cuff and you deliver massive value. Dustin, who's a young hustler, just invested quite a bit in himself to want to make sure he is the leader in the cannabis industry. Other than laws, what are his biggest challenges and any advice you would give him? He just moved from Texas to Colorado.
So hey, Dustin,
I want you to talk about your friend too.
Yeah, hey Dustin, I used to deal drugs. I put this in nothing to lose, everything to gain. So I think the number one rule of any drug dealer out there is don't get high off your own supply. That's the truth, right? Now that said, to everybody on the phone here, I've repented. I've given back millions upon millions of dollars to the very neighborhoods and juvenile halls and boys and girls clubs that I took from and that provided to me early on. So I share that with you to let you, when I talk about these things, I'm not bragging. I wish I didn't make those decisions early on. That said, on the cannabis industry, don't get out of your own supply. 2, be very careful about the federal laws that are happening and pay close attention to what Trump and the new administration are doing. I'm very nervous about it. I do believe, and I have not directly invested in the industry, although I don't have an issue with weed whatsoever. In fact, I think it's probably one of the best drugs in the history of the world. I deal at ViSalus. I was one of the largest dealers of the most used drug on the planet. Want to guess what the most used drug on the planet is? You probably are just drinking some of it in your cup. Caffeine. Yep. It's a drug, and it's the most used drug on the planet. And believe me, we all use it, right? Or a lot of us have. We do. So that said, I have a bit of a philosophical belief in that, and like I tell people, one of my friends, at ViSalus, we make white powder, right? We make shake. And if you saw our facilities, tens of millions of pounds of white powder coming in, being processed and being bagged and being shipped, it looks like a big drug factory, so to speak. So that said, you have to basically apply the exact same business principles, but you have to be careful about the federal laws. You have to be careful about cash because there's banking related challenges in the cannabis industry. And I will tell you, one of my college students, it was a college intern of mine. And Peter, you met Cameron, right? Or no?
Is he the one that's making?
Yeah. So this kid was like a Division I hockey player. He went to the University of Oregon, won a championship playing hockey for University of Oklahoma. He's star, Pac-10 all-time leading scorer. I meet him on his 21st birthday in LA randomly. And I told this kid, this is years back, like 2007. I said, hey, when it's summertime, you should come stay with me for the summer in LA. And he said, deal, and shook my hand. And I forgot about it. And like 5 months later, he shows up with his bags to move in with me for the summer. So that kid learned everything he could from me. He started a business in the cannabis industry. And now he'll send me videos of his cash room and his cash machines. And it's the funniest. It's like, I'm so proud of him. Like, he's just laughing as he's just piling cash. Like right now, I'll FaceTime him and he'll be in his cash vaults. And there'll be hundreds of people walking in with bags upon bags of cash, putting them in these cash counters. And he's doing he went from like 0 to 5 million a month now, and he'll probably do 10 million a month soon. He's crushing it. So I'm very proud of him. That's my story about that. But I think it's prohibition. I think long-term it should be legalized and it will be legalized. For now, you have to be very careful though, because in one state, you go to prison for the rest of your life if you get caught with 100 pounds of weed. In another state, it's legal. So just be careful what your state lines are, how you cross those lines, and what laws you're breaking locally, state-wise, and then federally. If you are breaking laws, be very careful.
I love it. Good answer. So we're going to end with this, and then we're going to switch to obviously doing some other stuff.
Yep.
But we're going to end with this. We have a lot of top performers, Ryan, and whether it's network marketing, direct sales, we have a couple of similar questions. What do you notice the common thread is between the top income earners? Like anything they do differently than the average distributor, and how to make sure you rise above the noise and be the best in the world at what you do if it is marketing or direct sales. What's the common themes?
Well, one, everyone out there, Peter was a direct sales king. What he did in your Cutco business, right? The level that he got to and the success that he got to is unheard of, like in Cutco, right? Congratulations. I have noticed a lot of commonalities in successful people that are in the direct selling space. And I would say when I learned that you were involved in direct selling, Peter, and you were successful at such a young age, I was like, no kidding. It makes sense to me because you have all the attributes necessary to become excuse me, great at direct selling. And I've studied this. So, ViSalus was about to go out of business. We were down to $600,000 a month in monthly recurring revenue in December of 2009. We had $7 million in debt. The company that bought us in 2008 was a public company, and they wrote us off. Our investors left. We had $600,000 in the bank. We were making $600,000 a month in sales, down from 2.5 million, and we were losing $600,000 a month. So I had 1 month to go. So I studied inside and out all the attributes, all the patterns, and all the usage patterns of direct sellers. One of the portfolio companies I've invested in, by example, and this is not me selling anything because we only sell to corporations in the direct selling space. It's called FragMob. For those of you out there, look it up. We power the mobile applications and Salesforce productivity tools and apps for Amway and a variety of It Works and a variety of great companies out there that that are competitors. I've also invested in other direct selling companies, and I mentor direct selling CEOs, and I mentor CEOs of competitive companies all the time, right? Because I just love creating value, and I want to see the industry do better. So attribute-wise, one, you have to be willing to take rejection, right? If your feelings get hurt when somebody tells you no, get over it. I always tell every direct seller, if I opened a restaurant, right, Peter, and I opened a restaurant, and let's say I opened a sushi restaurant, right? And you were in LA and you were eating right next door at a competitor's sushi restaurant, I'd be pissed at you, right? I'd be like, what are you doing? Why aren't you eating at my restaurant? And I would tell you every time you're in town, you have to eat at my restaurant, to the point where you'd be like, Ryan, I don't feel like sushi tonight. Or Ryan, I'm sorry, I have to go to your competition because you know what I mean? But you would expect me to constantly tell you about the quality of my food, wanting to invite you to my restaurant. And you would be okay with me emailing you about, holiday things I'm doing, about this I'm doing, right? You would be mad at me for constantly trying to get you to eat my food, would you?
Yep, 100%.
Right? So what happens in direct selling is people have their own restaurant and they're afraid to tell their friends and family to eat at it. And my approach is this: you're not my friend if you're not going to eat at my restaurant, right? And if you get mad at me for talking about my restaurant, then, we shouldn't talk anymore, because I love my restaurant. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of what I make and how I make it and the results it has. And so, if I get annoying because I talk about it too much, fine. Tell me to stop press. If you don't want to buy my food, or you're vegan and I don't have vegan food like you are, so be it, right? You just tell me no thanks, man. And we're still friends. Most direct sellers, they don't follow they don't act like entrepreneurs. They're ashamed of their business, or they're afraid of rejection. They're afraid of what people will think. And to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to care. You have to give zero, I won't cuss, but I generally do. You have to give 0 Fs about what other people think, right? And you have to make sure that, you come from a value system that the product and service that you do, your friends have to try it. They have to have it. And I'm so passionate about it that, that I believe if I don't expose my friends to the quality products that I've created in the healthy lifestyle space, that I will be mad at myself if I find out that they're sick. I find out if they get cancer. When my stepfather got cancer, I was mad that I didn't insist that he take my products, right? Not that it would have solved his cancer, but I just wondered, maybe it would have prolonged his life, or maybe, who knows, right? And I was mad at myself that I didn't insist that he take, our healthy supplements, and he didn't, I didn't invest in his health because I didn't want to nag him or sell him. So you just have to be relentless. You have to believe what you're doing is the best thing for them, and you can't take it personally, right? And then secondarily, you also can't spam people. So our apps at FragMob, we're working a lot of technology, but literally we're studying 1 million reps right now in the direct selling space using our applications, their usage patterns, their commissions, their peak time of the day, when they prospect, when they close, and we're really modeling and using machine learning and artificial intelligence to actually answer that question more specifically. But we are seeing some great patterns in what makes one person successful versus another, that's for sure. And then the last thing I'll tell you is the direct selling industry is generally filled with baby boomers. There's not really great millennial direct selling companies. There's a few little pockets within companies. Vima had a big millennial market share, but obviously, I know BK Barreco, the CEO of Vima. He didn't listen to some of my advice, and unfortunately, Vima fell apart. But they did do well in the millennial market. It's been tough to break through the millennial market, and you could tell the audience this better than I. But millennials, they don't want to be sold. They don't want to be smoke and mirrored. They can smell through bullshit. You know what I mean? if you're broke, you can't walk in and fake it till you make it and be like, I'm not broke. And you're like, dude, you know, I just saw your car run out of gas down the street because you couldn't put it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, the old direct selling methods are not going to work in the millennial marketplace. So, you know, you have to adapt direct selling to the millennial marketplace. So use the tools, you know, be the most creative, utilize tools that no other direct sellers are utilizing right now, because most of the people right now in the space that are the most successful, they're the old people, and they're like dinosaurs, and they're going to be, you know, they're going to go the way of the dinosaurs because the world's changing.
Huge, man. So I want to appreciate you for taking the time, and I've seen you work. And I'm telling you, man, I want people to understand you're a monster as far as your focus on value, making sure you're not doing things that aren't your strengths. You're very focused on maximizing experiences, even if it is at the justice of someone else not delivering that service. When we were in Vegas, we had a waiter that was not the best waiter. And you're so excited about this experience, you got mad at him because he wasn't good. You didn't care what he thought. You wanted us to have an amazing experience. And I admire that, man.
But you saw the way I got mad at him, right? Like I'm not, look, I came from poverty. You'll never catch me just attacking a person and trying to belittle them. And, you know, but this guy was, you remember, right? I was asking him questions and I was like, what's the best sake? And he's like, well, what's your favorite sake? I'm like, listen, I want to know what your best is and what you recommend. Obviously, I'm not from Japan. This guy was from Japan. I assumed he could tell me, you know, I didn't want to read through the menu. And he was like arguing with me. I kindly,
we all got mad,
I kindly stood up and I went over and had a conversation with him and let him know that I was a VIP, and he knew that. And I was going to request a new waiter because clearly he didn't like me, right? Do you remember? And he changed his attitude, right? He came back and he gave us a great experience. So, you know, when people breach my values and they're not doing the best they can, I have to go out of my way to help them do better, because they need to know. But I try to be kind, but I could be tough, you know, but I don't try to belittle or I attack a person's character, because it's not his character. That poor guy could have lost his mother that day. He could have gone through hell, right? And how am I to, you know, like, you know, that poor person could have gone through a terrible experience. His girlfriend could have just broken up with him, or he could have just caught her cheating on him. Like, I have no idea what he's going through. So I just gave him a shot, and he fixed himself, right? And I think that I added value to him, and he'll probably for the rest of his life show up a little different, because I went over and had some words with him about how he could rise to a higher standard.
100%.
So, yeah.
And the purpose of me telling me that, guys, is you have to know what you want and not settle. Ryan does not settle. And that's what he's taught me. And almost everything I've learned from you, Ryan, is from watching you. I mean, obviously listening, but it's all based off action and what you're doing. So once again, between me and the Game Changers, I genuinely appreciate you adding value, man. And you can follow Ryan at Real Ryan Blair on Twitter. He's everywhere. Yeah, so it's at Ryan Blair on are you there, Peter? Can you still hear me? Yeah. Sorry, something popped up. It's at Ryan Blair on Twitter, at RyanBlair.fans on Facebook, and on Instagram, Real Ryan Blair. I guess whoever the hell has Ryan Blair on Instagram won't sell it to me. Well, I appreciate you, man. And thanks again for your time. Yeah. And I'm excited to continue building our relationship. And by the way, if you're on GCIC, we're going to hop over to a different platform. So make sure you go there. But Ryan, once again, thanks, man. I appreciate you. Hey, thanks Peter, you're my, like we talked about the other day, you and I had an awesome time and a breakthrough. You're my family. Consider me one of the game changers. Everybody out there in this network, you got a new big brother or a little brother, depending on your age. So count me in to provide as much value as I possibly can. I appreciate you. Thanks again, man. You guys in the Game Changers Academy, make sure you focus on one or two things you've learned and master that before you move on to the next. If you are part of the elite and someone invited you, you can apply at gamechangersmovement.com/apply. And once again, much respect to my big brother, my boy, my family, Ryan, and we'll talk to you guys soon. See ya. Love you guys.